At some point, I think we do have to talk about the women's UConn Huskies being in the conversation. And I think the only team in the room for the conversation for the most dominant sports franchise of all time. Allow me to explain. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of BoxInOne, another BoxInOne discussion, a podcast created by Roischand and Joachim. Today, we are going to the college basketball trenches. Now, I don't actually mean to call it the trenches. In fact, I'm actually pretty excited to talk about this today. At the time of recording this video, it is 7:27. 10 more minutes, I could have made that Drake reference from Sycamore where he's like 7:37, and it came. All right, I'm sorry. Point isn't me saying that, though. That explains, number one, why my voice is a little bit quiet, but number two, why my voice sounds so deep compared to other episodes, because I just woke up. But that's besides the point. Sweet 16 starts tomorrow. I think on the men's and the women's side, the matchups are really great. There are a couple of players on the men's side that I wish we got to see more film of. Darren Peterson, AJ DeBansta. Wish we saw them a little bit more. We didn't even see Mikhail Brown Jr. at all in this tournament. But I do think we're still seeing great stuff from Darius Acuff. We're still seeing great stuff from Cameron Boozer. So it's going to be really fun seeing how those matchups play out. On the women's side, same exact thing. We're seeing good things from Hannah Hidalgo, Olivia Miles, former teammates, right? Lauren Betts is doing her thing. She kind of cleaned up her issue of being not necessarily a cone, but she cleaned up the issue of being kind of mismatch hunt worthy, and she's moving her feet a lot more. She's disrupting the post for guards that are coming in. But we gotta talk about UConn smoking Syracuse, number 9 seed Syracuse, 98-45. At one point in this game, it was like 67-14, no pun intended. Azzi Fudd trimmed her nails. What'd she do? She went for 26 in the first half, finishing with 34, finishing with 8 of 11 from 3. It's absolute domination. I think Sarah Strong had 20 or 22 in that game. And it's kind of unfair because I'm really thinking about UConn and Gino and the entire culture. This is the best and most dominant sporting franchise of all time. And when I say dominant, I'm not just talking about what they do as UConn Huskies. I'm thinking about what these women do after playing for Gino. When we look at just the lineage of UConn basketball, Nafisa Collier, Breanna Stewart, I mean, there's so many players. Almost all of them have gotten rings, whether you are Maya Moore, whether you are Diana Taurasi. It's just like, oh my goodness, every great player almost comes from UConn. And it's not only that every great player comes from UConn, it's the fact that they all have their own distinct identities. And I think that's a salute to the coaching of Gino, right? Because when I look at South Carolina and Don Staley, right, and the Gamecocks in their own right are also in this conversation for one of the most dominant franchises of all time, I think the difference between the two is how the players translate to the league. When I look at Paige Beckers, when I look at a Nafisa Collier, Breanna Stewart, yes, they all played in the UConn system, but the thing about UConn is they're going to show you how to play the system, but they're also going to develop your strengths. So if you can be the star of the system, like a Sarah Strong, for example, in her sophomore year, they're going to make sure you have the skills needed to be a number one option, but also play in the post, but also have guard skills. They develop everybody, not only for the system, but they develop everybody's individual players so they can be slotted into any system in the WNBA. When I look at South Carolina, I don't necessarily see the same thing. And this is not a diss to Don Staley at all. But when we look at players like Camila Cardozo, who was extremely dominant when she was in college, when she got to the WNBA, I'm not saying Cardozo's bad. She's obviously dealt with some injuries and things of that nature. But currently on the Chicago Sky, she's not doing what she did in college, right? When I look at Azia Cook, for example, and this is, I think, the best example I have, because just a quick note as I'm going through and editing this video, it's Zia Cook, not Zia Cook. And when I was pronouncing her name, my head kept telling me it's Zaya, but I never fixed it. But it's Zia Cook and not Zia Cook, so apologies for that. Continue. When I saw Zia Cook, and this is when I was tapped in overly to high school basketball, and I was seeing Colin Sexton and Zion and Jaleel Okafor and all these guys and RJ Barrett, etc. I saw that Zia Cook clip, and it's going to appear on the screen right now, where she crossed somebody up so bad, pointed at her, and then still finished the layup. I was like, oh my goodness, she's going to South Carolina. This is the future. This is the future. I was wrong. And I think the issue is some of the system for South Carolina. I think Zia Cook, as potent as an offensive player as she was, and I think still is or still can be, she was passing the ball. And I don't think there's anything wrong with guards passing the ball. Obviously, that's what you have to do as a point guard. But the issue is her other skills were not developed. She was slotted into the system. I don't want to say a PNR merchant, but it was like, okay, you're going to get this screen set for you by Boston. Then you're going to lob the ball to Boston, and Boston's going to go to work in the post. Staying on Aaliyah Boston, though, right? You got Aaliyah Boston and Asia Wilson, both Gamecocks, both extremely dominant in the WNBA. I think they're two standout cases because, number one, Asia Wilson now is not the Asia Wilson we saw in college. I mean, her ability to push the pace of transition now, her mid-range game, there's so much that Asia Wilson developed in the league. And obviously, she's been in the league for 7 to 8 years now, so it makes perfect sense why she would develop. Same thing with Aaliyah Boston, right? Where you have, number one, the ability to play off a point guard like Caitlin Clark, but number two, her post back has gotten way deeper compared to when she came in the league as well. So both of them have done major improvements in refining to their game. I'm not saying South Carolina doesn't have women who go into the W and dominate, but compared to UConn, it just doesn't hit the same. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that also just depends on the recruiting aspect. I'm sure if Paige Beckers went to South Carolina, Paige Beckers would still be Paige Beckers in the league. AZ Fudd would still be AZ Fudd whenever she gets drafted, right? But it's just, when you look at what UConn is doing, I mean, the Syracuse coach is talking about it's a personal attack to have us in the same bracket. Your ops are saying, please no more. We can't do this anymore. I'm not enjoying the game of basketball anymore. Do you know how crazy that is? You're 31-0. I think UConn is 54-0. They haven't lost a game in 54 games, and it's multiple times they've gone on this streak. This is not even their longest streak as a program. When we look at dominance, we look at decades upon decades upon decades of the same exact result. And what's that result? UConn's going to the Final Four. UConn's going to the national championship. And 50% of the time, UConn's winning the national championship. And this team is so unfair to them. I mean, you've got Blanca Quinones, who's a freshman, who doesn't necessarily get as many minutes as a Sarah Strong, as an Ashlyn Shade, as an AZ Fudd. But she's still a hooper. You got Kiki Arnold on this team still. It's just so crazy how stacked and how well all of these young women play. And when I'm thinking about franchises, like I said, you've got the Boston Celtics in that run with Bill Russell in the 50s and 60s where they got 11 rings. You have, even though they necessarily didn't stay together that long, the KD and Steph Golden State Warriors who were running everybody. But still, the Golden State Warriors, even before that, I believe it was 2015 to 2018 or 19, they were 218 and 43 in Oracle Arena. Absolute insanity. When you have teams that can do stuff like that, when you have the Lakers with Kobe and Shaq, the Showtime Lakers, the Miami Heat, yes, they all developed winning cultures, and even still, the Heat, 10, 15 years later, they got Mr. 83. Now, you don't have Bron or D-Wade or any playoff wins post Jimmy Butler, but you do have Mr. 83. But none of them are doing this. What UConn is doing to every single team they play almost. It's absolutely insane. Paige Beckers was injured for a couple years, so she didn't necessarily get the best look in college. I mean the best look. She still got a national championship, but we didn't really see all of her dominance on display. But it's just absolutely crazy what UConn has done time and time again. And in all honesty, they should probably win this year's national championship. I see no reason why they don't. And I think it's just going to, again, open this conversation of why they are the greatest sports franchise of all time. With that said, though, that is going to do it for us today, guys. Again, as always, if you enjoy the content, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Appreciate all the love and feedback on the channel we've been getting. Playoffs are coming up and March Madness is ending soon, so we're definitely going to try our best to get daily content out for you guys. Again, as always, if you enjoyed the content, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Follow the socials in the description, and we will see you all in the next one.